How do we know when to buy and where to buy, when to sell and where to sell? Well, we've identified in market cycles, quarterly publication, market cycles, we've identified 5 phases of an apartment's cycle, the regular bell curve. The 5 phases, excuse me, the 5 phases of an apartment cycle are: phase 1 is the recovery phase, and that's when things are looking up, interest rates are acceptable, employment is high. It's not the McDonald's hamburger jobs that we concentrate on, it's the McDonald's / Boeing jobs that we look at. Rents are starting to go up, and in that particular economy, everything is looking rosy at that phase 1. Phase 2 is called peaking. That's phase 2, and everything in phase 2 on the bell means that rents are increasing on a decreasing rate, but they're increasing. Prices are increasing at a decreasing rate. The bell's starting to curve. About that time, you'll start seeing sticks go up, builders starting building apartment buildings. Vacancies are still low. The next phase is called the boom phase, or phase 3. And that's when supply is equal to demand. That's when the rents are flat, prices are flat, and that's when a lot of inventory is basically coming online. Instead of having a line of people wanting to rent your unit, you might have to wait a few weeks to go ahead and rent it. That's the boom phase. The third phase is called a recession, and that's when prices are decreasing at an increasing rate. Rents are decreasing at an increasing rate. Unemployment is high, inflation is high, and things are kind of looking gloomy. And that's when you see NODs, that's the notices of default, being filed by the lenders, mortgage brokers, during phase 3, recession. The last phase is called bottom fishing, and that's when things are in the doldrums. The NODs end up on the courthouse steps, people are doubling up, landlords, owners are offering 6 months free rent, trip around the world in a toaster just to go ahead and rent it for a few months. Things are very bleak. What will happen on this bell curve on the phase 5? It'll start again on phase 1 when the local politicians decide to do what? Create jobs. Jobs are the engine that drives all economies. Soon as jobs are starting to create, you'll start to go in phase 1. Let me ask a couple of questions here. If you were going to buy a piece of property, how many people would buy it in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5? In our quarterly newsletter, Market Cycles, we generally recommend, and this is the 3, we make 3 recommendations for buy and 3 recommendations for sell. We recommend that you buy it in phase 5. The reason we recommend you buy it in phase 5, not only will you get the best price, but you will get the best terms. And what are the best terms for buying? Basically, no money down. But we never buy for our members no money down. We use leverage wisely. We don't buy in foreclosures or no money down because there are certain, in the book you'll find out, there are a number of pitfalls to buying foreclosures. So in phase 5 you can buy with very little down, using it wisely, and you can also get the best price, negotiate the best price. Okay, let me see the hands, or let me go ahead and see how many people will go ahead and sell in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. If you put your hand up for phase 3, you are the greedy ones. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. We usually recommend in phase 2, and the reason we recommend in phase 2 is that you might not get the best price, but you can get the best terms. And getting the best terms means generally all cash, not only for tax purposes, but for commitment purposes. Because if you sell in phase 3 and have to carry back paper, you have a commitment or you have a liability on that particular property if your name is recorded on the title report. If the buyer is sued, usually the attorneys look at everybody's name on the title report, and if your name is on the title report as an individual carrying back a second trust deed, there's a possibility that you might also get sued. Phase 3 is you might get the best price, but you won't get the best terms in phase 3. Let me tell you a little story about phase 3. We had bought some property in Southern California, and we decided, against market cycles advice, to sell it in phase 3. We got greedy. 6 months after we sold it, we're in Southern California, we had an earthquake. And the earthquake affected this property that we sold. When we sold it, we took back a $150,000 second trust deed. So the buyer came to us after a month or two and said because they had damage on that property, they couldn't pay on the second trust deed, and they asked us if we would defer the payment for a few months. Being the good guys that we are, we said yes. About 6 or 7 months after that, we got a call from the first trust deed holder, and they said, you know, the guy that you sold that property to a few months ago has not been paying on the first. Well, that's interesting. I said he's not paying on the second either. What he was doing, it's called milking the property. He was collecting the rents, not paying the utilities, some of the utilities, not paying the taxes, and not paying the mortgages. We had to step in there. We had $150,000 at stake, and if we didn't get it resolved, we're going to lose our whole $150,000. So I contacted some of our professionals, some of our associates. I've been in the real estate business for over 35 years. And one individual indicated that they would go ahead and bail us out. They would make the first current, they would pay the taxes, the utilities, and do some repair. However, on our second trust deed of $150,000, they asked for a little discount. Now, little is kind of like a relative term, isn't it, when you're talking about little? So I said, friend, he's still a friend by the way, how much of a discount do you want on the $150,000 second trust deed? Guess what he said? He said he wanted a $75,000 discount. So we sold it in phase 3, but we had to take a $75,000 hit on the note that we carried back. It's not a problem to go ahead and carry back second trust deeds, but be careful of the economics involved. When you're buying rental property, mid-sized apartments, you have the ability to hire people that will help you. It's building a winning team that we call it, and getting people that know what they're doing to help you will increase your chances of making money. You don't have to go through a steep learning curve that causes you a big problem, cost and time. And you don't have to kick the tires because the people that you hire are individuals that are trained in rental property, investment properties. And the two people that we work with mostly with our group of investors are CCIMs, that is Certified Commercial Investment Members. You can find them on the internet at ccim.com. These are qualified individuals. They have the designation that indicate they will help you invest in real estate and give you good advice. The other individual or groups that we work with is CPMs. It's Certified Property Managers. And these individuals are local CPMs. They also have a designation that tells you that they have the experience and the education to give you good advice on buying. So when we put small groups together, we work with CCIMs and CPMs exclusively. After you've located the area, you got your team together, you want to analyze property. I look at a multitude of property setup sheets or information sheets each week. They're all painting Monets of the property, but a lot of them are Donald Duck cartoons. So we analyze the property using these two tools. The first tool that we use is IRR after taxes. That's the internal rate of return after taxes. It gives you an idea of if you buy a property, presently buy a property and sell it in the future, what the actual rate of return is based on the present value of inflation. So it gives us a true picture of what we made on the investment. So we use IRR AT after taxes for evaluating income property. The other tool that we use is called a cap rate or capitalization rate. That is the net operating income over the purchase price. And the cap rate that we use on real figures is 8.5 or greater. And the cap rate goes something like this. The lower the cap rate, the higher you pay for the property, purchase price. The higher the cap rate, the lower the purchase price. So if you're buying property in a 4, 3 or 4 or 5 cap rate, you're paying a great deal for that property. Try to look for property that has an 8 cap rate or better. There are variations to that, and it's mentioned in the book, but try to go ahead and do work with the cap rate. There are a number of ways to go ahead and evaluate property, but we find that the internal rate of return and the cap rate are two most significant ones and ones that we can rely on. Well, what do we do for our members? How is it important to them? Well, for our members, we have bi-monthly meetings. We also have reports that come out on a monthly basis to our members. And in our bi-monthly meetings, we usually have it on the weekend, and it's a 2.5 hour meeting. First part of the meeting, we have an educational meeting where we have professionals in the real estate industry, attorneys, CPAs, people, mortgage brokers, people that give our members who attend the meetings a wide scope education on what's happening in the real estate industry. The second part of our meeting is called the property presentation meeting, and it's only available to our members. In the property presentation meeting, we present properties to our members who are interested in buying as a TIC, a tenant in common. I'll go through that in a little while. We present a full package property presentation meeting. We have pictures of the property. For example, this picture is a property in Houston, Texas called Pecan Shadows, and the price is $4.2 million. And individuals can get into these properties. In fact, we bought 12 properties in Houston. We bought a number of properties in Southern California, Nevada, Denver. These are pockets of opportunity. I mentioned Houston, Austin, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona. We bought a number of properties in the $30,000 range, $29,000 to $30,000 range, and we sold them to California investors back east for the $60,000, $65,000 range. So these are presented at the second part of the property presentation meeting. Individuals can ask questions. The meetings are taped so that if anyone can't attend, we'll send them a meeting and the complete property presentation package so they can go ahead and call our offices and ask questions about it. If they're interested in buying a 5 or 10 or 15% interest, they simply fill out the paperwork just the same as buying a property on your own, 100%. No different. You put your money in with an attorney or escrow, get all the due diligence reports. We have a physical due diligence report from Criterion that gives us all the information we want to know about a particular property. We also have a financial due diligence by a CCIM, gives us the financial information. After they receive all this financial information, the individual investor can go forward with the purchase, or they can go ahead and bow out. So they can go ahead and do their own due diligence. We'll provide information for them so that they can make the right decision. And that's how people starting with a nominal amount of cash can get started in multifamily properties and pockets of opportunity. And it's only available to our investors. So that is the meeting, the property presentation meeting. Very important. We presented 18 properties last year. We're hoping this year to present a lot more. I mentioned, well, let me mention why I think we're successful. We don't charge any syndication fee at all. We're real estate brokers and we get a real estate broker fee from the seller. We are co-buyers in these properties. We put our own money into these properties. We don't get an equity interest like a lot of syndicators do by not putting any money. We put our hard-earned dollars into these properties. We look primarily for appreciation. The first year or two, there is very little cash flow, if any, but we go ahead and fund for that. Syndicators, private syndicators, look for cash flow. They put 50, 60% down. The internal rate of return after taxes is dismal. The other thing is we work for appreciation. Our property's been appreciating over 20% per year.